Just seeing the names of these people who are actually in scripture, and you can see that they're actually real people who were really there for in historical artifacts as well. I'd love to bring a friend here because then they can actually see for real that, you know, this is something that has real historical evidence. It's not just a made-up story.
See that tablet here? This is one of the descriptions of the biblical flood, dating back to about the 1900 BC. It's that tablet right there. And there's loads of stories in nearly every culture in the planet of a flood. And you go around the world, it's literally the most documented story in the ancient world of flood. So like when you go to the Bible, the man who was leading out, the family who was faithful was Noah. And when you go to different cultures of the world, his name is like being preserved. So like when you go to Mount Ararat in Turkey, the natives there call it Ko-Inu, which means the Mount of Noah. If you go to the Hindu religion, they have a god called Vishnu. And if you study the story of Vishnu, he forms onto a fish to save a family from a flood. So many cultures around the world have like preserved Noah's name. This is the Cyrus Cylinder. Have you guys heard of Cyrus? Have you heard of King Cyrus? He's prophesied in the book of Isaiah, where he's going to rebuild the temple of the foundation. He's mentioned in the book of Daniel, and he's mentioned in the book of Ezra. But this cylinder here is what people call the first Bill of Rights, because in the Medo-Persian Empire, it gave everybody the opportunity to have freedom and religious and civil liberty. So that's why they call it the first Bill of Rights. Yeah. And it's King Cyrus who's mentioned, as I said. He was prophesied about 200 years before he was even on the scene by Isaiah, where Isaiah said he's going to lay the foundation of the temple. And then when you read Ezra chapter 1, King Cyrus laid the foundation of the temple. Sir Leonard Woolley, and he excavated Ur of the Chaldees and confirmed that where Abraham lived was actually historically accurate. So when you go through this section here, you can kind of see the culture of Ur of the Chaldees and why God said to Abraham, come out. Because if you study the ancient world, it was dominated by, I think it was 4 things: sun worship, serpent worship, sexual worship, and self-worship. Yeah, that's what dominated the age. All the cultures just did that. So God said, "Now come out, man." And when you walk through this section, you can kind of get a picture. Very high culture. The cultures are very, 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 very high in advance. Very high. But God said to Abraham, "Come out and just live like a nomad." When King Sennacherib invaded him for a little season, King Hezekiah gave King Sennacherib 30 pieces of silver. And on that tablet right there, it actually has it documented. It's called a famous Taylor prism. And they actually have it documented when King Hezekiah actually gave 30 pieces of silver to King Sennacherib. See the artifact there on the top right? It actually documents the fall of Nineveh right there. So what Jonah did eventually a couple of years afterwards is actually documented on that artifact right up there, the fall of Nineveh. You see that the first kingdom, which is symbolically represented, which is Babylon, it has like a head of a female lion and the eagle wings. And that's how Babylon was first represented. This king here is mentioned in the book of Isaiah. Have you guys ever heard of a king called Sennacherib? That's King Sennacherib. Unfortunately, his face has been damaged off. I don't know if it's because of the archaeologists or people who tried to pillage it before. But he tried to challenge God himself. He says, your God can't do you nothing. So God's like, okay. And he tried to invade King Hezekiah. And as I said, when King Hezekiah got the threat from him, he was scared. Because as I said, when the Syrians came to invade you, you were shook. Because they weren't just invade you, they were going to mass, as you can see, where is it? Here. They're beheading people. They're skinning people alive. They're very, very brutal. And this is Sennacherib. He's mentioned in Isaiah chapter 36 and verse 1. And his army was huge. And if the whole of this panel here is basically reading like the book of Isaiah and the book of Kings, is where it's talking about the war between the Assyrians and the children of Israel. And Sennacherib said, your God's a fool, he can't do nothing. Well, what happened to Sennacherib? Got taken out. You know, they don't ramp with God. And plus, the reason why he would have never beaten King Hezekiah, because Christ was coming through that lineage of Judah, so there would have been no hope. You know what I mean? There would have been no hope. But all of this room here, looking at the war between the Assyrians and the children of Israel, is basically reading like the book of Kings and reading like the book of Isaiah. Now, this artifact is very important. This king is in Luke chapter 3 and verse 1, and his name is Tiberius Caesar. Now, why it's important, you cannot study the 70 weeks prophecy in Daniel chapter 9 without understanding this time period. So when you read Luke chapter 3 and verse 1, it talks of the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar. And the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar is when Jesus was officially baptized and was called the Christ, which was in AD 27. It's very critical that you know that time period. And that's when, before that, he was just Jesus. When he got baptized, that's when he became the Messiah or the Christ. Before that, he was just Jesus. As soon as he got baptized, it was in the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar, which was, those who've done the chronological dating right, it's AD 27. So that's the exact year Jesus Christ was the Messiah. So that's when, as soon as he got baptized, when you read the book of Luke chapter 4 in the following chapter, that's when Jesus now started to say, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me. Because that's what the Messiah means, anointed. The Messiah, anointed one, or Christ means Messiah. So it was in the reign of this man here, Tiberius Caesar. And when you read, I think it's Acts chapter 11 and verse 28, it mentions this man here, he's number 10. That's Claudius Caesar, who succeeded Tiberius Caesar. So the New Testament has about 3 Caesars mentioned in massive gates. And it's only through God's strength that Samson had something like that on his back. They had to have something of this magnitude because to just invade a country, you had to protect your fort, you know, because civilizations were always warring with each other constantly. Rosetta Stone has 3 different languages on it. So at the top and in the middle, it has 2 of the Egyptian languages, the hieroglyphic at the very top, and I think the middle one is called either Demotic or Hieratic, and at the bottom is Greek. So the people in Europe were like, well, we know Greek. So they deciphered the Greek, and then they were able to decipher the Demotic, and that's how they're able to decipher the hieroglyphic, and that's how we understand ancient Egyptian language today. So as you can see, they preserved mummies for years. Look how intact the hair is. Very day, they still don't know how they did it. They don't know how they engraved these things into these granite rock. The pyramids in Teotihuacan in Mexico, and it kind of conflicts with it because evolution says we're evolving and getting better now, and they're like, well, there's artifacts thousands of years ago where people still cannot explain how they achieved such high mathematical achievements. So these artifacts as well show that man back then was very technically advanced and had a very high knowledge of architecture.
It was awesome. I'm actually gutted that I couldn't bring more people to come and listen today. It was very insightful. I've got a lot of notes, so I'll be referencing and going back to the Bible and, you know, looking at things that I've learned and looking more in depth and stuff. So it was really, really good.
For me, today has just been amazing because reading the Bible is a bit of a struggle for me. So I'm not really knowing the history, and now reading some of it that I've seen in some YouTube videos, and then seeing it in the Bible and seeing the I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but the statues and oh yeah, artifacts. That's the one. Now I've seen all the artifacts and seen it written in the Bible. It's just I feel enlightened and feel energized.